Okay, so you're Spanish. So while a lot of Latinos speak Spanish, not all Latinos are Spanish, and a lot of Latinos don't like to be called Spanish because Spanish is actually a term for people from Spain. Spain is a country in Europe. It is the country that conquered the majority of Latin America, so that's why so many Latin Americans speak Spanish and not their native tongues, because of course before the Spanish got to Latin America there were people there. Shocking, I know, they didn't discover Latin America. So to take away a whole entire culture and people's ancestors and who they are, the color of their skin, the way that they look, by calling them Spanish, some people, it kind of rubs them the wrong way. So it's a better thing to just go ahead and call them Latinos or Latin Americans, which, on a side note, which I won't go over now, some people even feel like that word is not a great definition of a lot of native people who still live in Latin America. Okay, so then you are Mexican. Actually, I'm not Mexican, and while I love Mexico and I love Mexicans, it is kind of a bummer to know that a lot of people just assume that if you are Latino or Latina that you are definitely Mexican. So no, actually I'm not, and there are many other countries in Latin America, and I will list them off for you.
México, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panamá, Colombia, Ecuador, Perú, Bolivia, Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, Brasil, Venezuela, Puerto Rico, República Dominicana, y Cuba.
You don't really look Latina. What are you? This is such an interesting question because a lot of people don't realize that Latinos and Latinas is not a race, it is a culture. You can be any race and still be Latina or Latino. I think a lot of people assume that Latinos are going to be this sort of mixture of the three main races in Latin America, which are the indigenous, the Native Americans of Latin America, the Spanish, and the Africans. The reason why is because the Spanish, they came to Latin America, they had slaves, and there were natives already there. So you oftentimes will get people who are a mix of all three, or one of three. But you could possibly have an Asian Latino. There could be a family from Asia who wanted to move to Costa Rica and grow up there, and they're still Latino because it's whatever the culture is that you feel or where you grew up in. It's really not about race. The only true Latinos would be the natives who are pure native, but many of us don't even know what many of us are not lucky enough to know what tribe we come from. For me, for instance, I'm pretty much a mix of all three: Native, European, and African. So here are a couple examples of famous Latinos that are either mixed with Latino or they're full. This is just to give you an idea of the wide range of Latinos that there are. So it is excessive to say somebody is white and Latino or someone is black and Latino, because they could be, Latino could mean white. As you can see, Louis C.K. is definitely white, but he's Mexican. So this is just giving you guys a little bit more of an idea of what Latino really means. But there must not be a lot of racism in Latin America, right? Unfortunately, there is racism in Latin America. Just like any other place with a large variety and diversity of people, there's going to be racism. It's just the way that it is. But we have to be aware of it instead of pretending like it's not there. I feel like a lot of people still have this opinion that Latinos are a race, and so there's not a lot of racism because everybody's the same race. It's just not true. Still, people of European, Spanish descent continue to have the biggest place of wealth in Latin America, while the people of African descent, those who were displaced from their home and then, abducted as slaves, and their lineage is going to be, at the bottom of living in poverty, more likely to be living in poverty. So that is a really sad fact. And then there's, of course, the natives who, again, are more at risk to live in poverty just because of the displacement of their homes. And, it's a very normal thing. You look at what happened in the United States and how, colonialism affected the natives and the slaves that were here. It's very similar in Latin America. We just seem to hide it a little bit better. I feel like a lot of Latinos like to put on a front, you know, that everything's cool and everything's okay and there's not a lot of racism, but there is. And, you know, it seems like it's a joke for a lot of my culture, which makes me really sad. I was just recently saw like a meme, or was a video, some funny video, and it was on a Latino page, and it was something like, the Latino parents, when you say you brought un negro home, which is just saying a black guy home, and it's the parent is like yelling and freaking out, and it's supposed to be a funny joke, when in reality that's not funny at all. And it seems like if that were happening here in the United States and someone made a meme like that, it wouldn't be taken so lightly. So, and I really want to challenge the Latin American community to, one, fess up and take accountability for having racism in our culture, and, you know, take a stand to stop it. It's really not okay. And you know, we're no different than any other group of people. We have to be better, and make sure that, you know, all Latinos feel welcome, because we have I understand, as far as I've talked to many Afro-Latinos, that a lot of African Latinos do not feel welcome in our society, in our culture, and we have to do a better job as, you know, if we don't, you know, mix into that culture, we don't see ourselves as being African. Well, when we have to admit to ourselves that many of us are mixed with African. And the other point is just that it shouldn't matter, you know. We need to be better about how we treat one another. And we also have to love ourselves and stop trying to claim being Spanish. I mean, if you are Spanish, that's great, that's one thing, but you should not be trying to claim something that you are not because you're ashamed of who you are. If you are Native or African, you have really got to take that, be proud of who you are, and, you know, just be you, and stop continuing on with the old way of thinking. We are not those people anymore. We don't have to think like our parents. So that's really important, especially for us to change you know, the system in which we live in, because now Latinos are in the United States like, whoa, like crazy. We have an opportunity to really shape the way our society forms. So, you know, something to think about. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned something. Bye.